Hello, everybody, and welcome to the almost final event. So, well, it's the final session actually. After this, we have the closing. It's a session that's probably on one of the most hot topics of the moment. We had to, so if you organize a festival in the smart cities domain, you might also, for example, think about organizing just a festival just on digital twins, but we decided to kind of contain our enthusiasm a little bit and instead group some of, I think, the more advanced and also important players, industry representatives, also use case owners of digital twins in Europe, around the world as well. So we have quite a lineup. We have Bart Delatharman from from OGC, who will be presenting some thoughts, the perspectives from the geospatial side. We have Ulrich Ahle of the Fireware Foundation, who will also be enlightening us, let's say, with the Fireware approach to smart cities and the role these European open technologies can play in advancing and connecting the data to digital twins and so forth. But I'll leave that. Of course, this is very aligned with, let's say, the philosophy and actually also the technology that OASC looks at. Then we dive into it. So we have Jose from Microsoft talking about the Azure digital twin, which is being used, I think, in many places to kind of get it done. We have Lieve Raas, who is coordinating I think the largest and probably only beefy European connecting digital twin project called Duet. So we'll be talking about that. And then last but certainly not least, we have two speakers from Vienna. We have Sarah and Hubert, who will be discussing or presenting the work that Vienna is doing. It'll be a bit of a loose format, so we'll try to kind of blend the talks with discussions, but we'll see where we are on time. We have some flexibility, of course, the closing session being right after this. So I hope you are all as excited as we are to kick off this session. Without further ado, Bart, the floor is yours, and we're all keen to hear your message.
All right, super. Let me start off by sharing my screen so you can hear what I say. Thank you, Davor, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm in great company in this session as well. So fantastic. My name is Bart Delatharman, president of the OGC. And so a quick word on the OGC. We are the hub for thought leadership for all things geospatial. So we're most known for our standards activities. We could not be doing that if we would not have a community to serve for. So actually, as in parallel, or almost in parallel with the session here today, we had a specific focused what we call location powers on the urban digital twin that I have been attending, and I took some of the highlights to share with you here today. So as a foundation for the digital urban twin, location information is everywhere. You cannot imagine a digital twin without the location information, preferably in 3D, where you can look at a city through the city model, where we combine fast-moving data with slow-moving data or sensor information that we bring into a city model that is semantically enriched. Purpose-focused sharing of data is important. We recommend doing that over open consensus-based standards. And when you use standards, use the ones that are well known. That's a concept called the pivotal points of interoperability. Another recommendation, and also a little bit of a personal soapbox, is not to create new smart city standards. There's enough standards out there already, and to use the general ICT accepted concepts. For OASC here, the minimum interoperability mechanisms, which I'm a big fan of, and also that we endorsed in the Espresso project that ran 2 years ago. And for me, really, that is the interoperable components, not to go for a grand design. And the reason not to go for grand design is that we have an ecosystem of digital twins. You have digital twins for health, for transportation, for underground infrastructure. And there cannot be just one system. These systems have to interoperate with each other using the well-known standards, using the ICT concepts that are out there. I think semantic technologies will play an important role as we move forward with digital twins. I think they will, and the next speaker, Ulrich, will certainly touch on that, is to avoid silos of information, of which we have enough now. And so really what we need to do is to break down these silos and make information flow more easily. I think that semantic technologies, amongst others, are the way to go. So that's a quick intro from my side. Turn it back to you so that we can save some time and have a more discussion. There you go. Alvar, back to you.
Oh, sorry, I was still muted. Thank you, Bart, for that overview. I don't know if any of the other speakers want to jump in at this point, or maybe we give the floor to Ulrich first for also some of the vision before we kind of dive into the format. Ulrich?
Yeah.
Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, then let me start my presentation. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I'm Ulrich Ahle, CEO of the 5R Foundation. And Davor, thank you for inviting me to this event, to this session. All of you who have been in this session for the last 2 days heard already a lot about 5R and how it contributes to the MIMS. And I would like to enhance a bit and to add a bit, Bart, to your view. And we see that more and more of our life is becoming digital, and our digital life plays around the digital twin and data and context information describing what's happening around us, what's happening in a city, what, where, when, and why. And here, as Bart said, the where is also very important. But as Bart said, today, this information are very often organized in silos. In silos because interfaces don't fit to each other, data models don't fit to each other, company policies do not support the provision and the exchange of data, or that there is fear that the data sovereignty is not maintained, that there is a fear to lose data, to lose know-how, to lose business. And our mission at 5R is to break down the silos and to make data available on platforms for smart solutions to, when talking about a city, on the one hand, to reduce the cost of operating a city, and on the other hand, to improve the quality of life of people living in the city. And with this, there is the approach to create the digital twin, so to create and get information from all entities within a city, from buildings, from shops, from vehicles, from people, probably also from people, bring it into the digital twin representation, then use artificial intelligence, use big data analytics to analyze, to process, to visualize, to monitor this data, and back out of the digital twin to provide information to the real world, to do fact-based decisions, or also to automate decisions and actions. And the structure you can see on the left is also the structure for the overall architecture of 5R. You see it here on the left. So what is 5R? 5R is open source technology. We are providing open source software building blocks to create smart city platforms, to create applications in cities. And we are bringing, API, which is, and I'll come to that on the next slide, since 2 years a standard in smart cities. And out of the software building blocks, we do have the context broker. The FIWare context broker is the main software building blocks. We call them generic enablers. And if you remember from this page, NGSI and context broker, then we are on the right way. Because the context broker has been elected by all European member states to become a standard building block recommended by the European Commission to be used when creating digital solutions. It's in a program called Connecting Europe Facility, which has the aim to create the digital single market of the European Commission. And on the left side, this standard API became an ETSI standard for context information management in smart cities called NGSI LD, because also JSON LD is supported. And the third element is that we started 2 years ago an approach to define common data models. Together with cities, initially with 12 so-called frontrunner smart cities. Vienna is part of them. And in the meantime, let me just mention and bring the relation to the MIMs, the minimum interoperability mechanisms, where NGSI is one of the possible implementations of MIM1, and the data models are an implementation of the MIM2, coming to common harmonized data models. And these data models are all published on GitHub under a source called Smart Data Models. And in the meantime, dozens of different data models have been developed and have been agreed on a global scale for different applications in cities, helping cities in their digital transformation journey. And this journey typically goes in 4 steps. First, to break down the silos using standard APIs, and also in the second step using standard data models. Then in the third step, not only to work with static data, with historic data, but get access to what we call write-time data or write-time context information. And in the fourth step, in the final step, once a city has been able to create its smart city platform, to provide this platform also to third parties in the city, to other organizations, to dealers, to shops, to companies, and allow them to provide their data via this smart city platform, and also to monetize their data, because open data not necessarily means always that these data are for free. Otherwise, a data economy will not become reality. And again, with this, we are implementing MIMs. Again, the MIM1 for the API, MIM2 for the data models, and MIM3 for the data exchanges, for the data marketplaces. Yeah, and this is my input for this discussion, which will follow during the course of this hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ulrich, for an excellent presentation that gives a really good overview, I think, of what FIWare is doing, also how you guys have grown over the years. And it's also clear, I think, from the presentation why we have been such good friends for years.
Yeah.
So before we jump to the next speakers, we have a question from the audience. They reach me by text, so somebody else reason. So I don't have all the context, but Ricardo Pino asked, what about the IFC standard? And I assume that was directed to Bart. Yeah.
Yep.
So could you comment on that?
Yes, absolutely. So IFC is the standard made by Building Smart International, and that is an interoperability format specifically for design and operate buildings. We work very closely with Building Smart. The digital model that we provide for cities made in CityGML, and we both work together to align them We have a white paper out that was released in March, I believe. So if you search for OGC paper on IFC and CityGML interoperability, you will see how that works. We have joint specifications as well that are part now of IFC and CityGML. It's called the alignment specification for road design and rail. And so we have a pretty intense relationship with that organization, because we feed off each other. Think of how you maintain a city model. If you get the IFC for a specific building, you turn that into CityGML. Every building that is recognized by a city, you need to have the plans. If they deliver them in IFC, then they could actually update your city model. And that's a great way of interacting. If they contribute, they can use the city model for the planning. So folks online, if you want to hear more about that interoperability, search for FCP1, Fox Charlie Papa 1 from the OGC. It's all specified in there. Thank you for a great question.
Thanks, Bart, also for a great answer. It really sounds like you're on top of that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's huge for me. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to listen to. Are there any questions from the panelists at this moment? Or do we go to the next speaker? If there are no burning questions, I would like to offer.
Maybe I could just underline something
sure.
what Ulrich said earlier, and that is that use of the semantic technologies, and going back to the roots of information, not predefined models that have a lot of inflexibilities, but go to the atoms of information which sits in these semantic models, and it's Ulrich and I have talked about this in the past, and so absolutely great that is the way to go, I believe, as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any further? Yeah, it's more difficult than with a physical room, of course. I have to kind of wait and see if somebody pops up. If not, then I would like to offer the floor to Jose from Microsoft. Jose, could you briefly introduce yourself and also talk about all the stuff that Azure is doing? Because well, we get a lot of that news. It's cool things.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Jose Antonio Ndibiela. I'm working for Microsoft Western Europe as the public sector government industry executive specialized in cities. And I would like to cover the next minutes of what's our position related to the digital twins. We see that around 80% of our European cities are seriously considering to build an urban data platform. An area where they can gather all the different available data that today, as we have seen, is mainly based on silos, and then integrate it all in a data lake. But these data needs to provide insights and value to the city and the citizens, and the concept of building a digital twin on top of that is wonderful. Is wonderful basically because it's responding to these three main questions. Is giving us the chance to integrate different areas, different data from many different silos that today we have in our city. I remember a city that I visited, and they told me that they had 22 different citizens databases. Okay, so a hard task to integrate them all. Also, this allows us to run simulations. So we don't have to disrupt or disturb our citizens making physical labs or changing things here or there, or then testing this solution or testing this potential new methodology to move traffic or to avoid pollution. We can run simulations. We can be seated in our cockpit and trying to simulate what if scenarios in our city. So that's one of the biggest benefits. And also we can use innovation. We can use artificial intelligence to extract insights. There's a noise there. Okay, better. So we can use artificial intelligence to extract insights from all this massive amount of data, and then provide unexpected and incredible new services to our citizens. Some of the new scenarios are described here, but we can imagine absolutely wonderful things based on this data. To make this happen, we from Microsoft have added into our Azure stack a new area, we call it Azure Digital Twins, that is basically semantic model that is fully based on the OASI NGSI LD standard. So our partners and our customers can design their digital twins fully compliant with this standard. Also, we are adding all of our Azure IoT set of different products and solutions that are integrating, are providing security, are developing the concept of edge computing, and are also connecting with the rest of the internal IT, where we have teams, we have civil servants moving and talking about different internal applications. We have designed the digital twin definition language that is entitling all of our partner ecosystem to integrate the different data to avoid these silos that we have seen. And we are mentioning here some of the most relevant partners in each and every area. And as you can see here, we are using for the smart cities the open and agile smart cities standards into this ontology for the digital twin definition language. That way, we can help different customers. We will see this later. We help IMEC to develop this wonderful project in the European Union, the project Do It. Also, we are working very intensively with Bentley systems in many cities across the European geography with their open planner solution, and many other that are delivering on this promise for a digital twin. And we are also helping to reshape the city, understand the distances in the city, and reaccommodate the city to the new standards because of the COVID. Many cities are seriously considering this reorganization of the spaces, accommodating new Corona bike lanes. This was invented in Paris to allow these micro electric vehicles to use the spaces and going for the 15 minutes ideal city. We have heard about the 1 minute ideal city now from Stockholm. And again, the idea is to reuse the public space for new proposals and making the city more social, more human. And finally, we have announced very recently at the Smart City Live this wonderful solution from Siemens, the MindSphere City Graph, is working together with Bentley systems, and again, is fully based on the Azure Digital Twins or in the Open and Agile Smart Cities NGS ILD standard. So different options, different solutions, all of them integrating on Azure, and a wonderful way to finally take control of the city, take control of the data, and provide massive and very special value to the citizens. And that's basically my position and my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose, for that presentation. It was really good to see kind of the overview of, well, not just what you're doing, but what you can kind of bring to the table, and you know, as Microsoft. And it's, of course, we've been kind of in touch over the past year or so, looking at how we can get, you know, interoperability, open standards at the forefront of you know, digital twins there. So it's a kind of an ongoing story. I think it's a really good well setting we're seeing here, because I'm hearing quite converging signals also, correct me if I'm wrong, in the rest of the panel, is that everybody seems to be more or less on the same page on, okay, how we can make this work. And then when I look at the you know, the partner slide that you bring to the table, and I know Fireware also has you know, quite a bit of industry firepower behind it. It's you know, the digital twins are also that type of convergence, you know, where you see kind of those models deliver on that. So it's really good to see, and I think it's going quite well in an interesting direction. So we're happy to kind of well have a continuing conversation on that. Lieven, Duet was already mentioned by oh sorry, the rest of the panel. Do they want to kind of jump in on Jose's presentation? Any comments, questions, remarks before I kind of go to? All good? Yep. All right. So Lieven, Jose mentioned already the Duet project. Of course, as OASC, we already know what the project is about. We're a partner, but it's such a great story, I think, how it grew and what it intends to deliver. And I know very well also the kind of the way the project started was very charming in the sense that there was this kind of deconstruction and then building up. Okay, that's not the digital twin. That's not the digital twin, and we kind of had this exercise of trying to define based on existing technologies and evolutions what then we should be aiming for. So I think it's kind of a very well-footed project. It's being managed very well. I think it's spreading out already. Lots of kind of well, impetus is behind it. But Lieven, before I talk too much about your section, I'd like to invite you to present the Duet project, please. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Daver, and thank you also, Jose, for mentioning the project and for inviting the Duet consortium in this wonderful session. So I'll now share my screen. Sorry, that's the wrong button. Presentation mode. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe here's a few words about the Duet consortium and project. So we are in consortium with 15 partners. Project started almost a year ago, the end of 2019. Yeah, maybe what's important to mention is that also questioning the demand from the European Commission for that particular call was not only building a digital twin for use amongst people in the city, decision makers, politicians, and so on, but also especially what can a digital twin also mean for the broader public. And therefore, the title here is a digital twin for better public decision making. And public can be seen here twofold, toward the audience, toward the citizens, and of course also decision making in the public sector. I don't have to explain here what digital twin is. I only want to say that this is a technology that can disrupt the status quo, not only technically, but also in terms of cooperation in a big city, in a region as Flanders, where I live and where I work for. But also between regions, between countries and local communities. Of course, the heritage of a digital twin lies in the make industry, and I think that digital city twins add an extra layer of complexity to the concept, and maybe not in, let's say, the design part of sensors and all the stuff around, but especially in combining different data sets, different information, different sectors in an administration that has to work together. And so this adds an extra layer of complexity. And this layer especially that we also want to emphasize in Duet, next to, of course, the technical things we have to solve and challenges we have to face. So when we started, of course, about how can we apply a digital twin concept in today's smart city, of course, those things are here on the slides are quite obvious. Make things easier to interpret, the effect of one decision to another one in a different sector, provide an integrated view of the city, but also facilitates data-driven decision-making and evidence-based decision-making as well as a very important part. So this brings us as a government, as a project, and so on, to another way of entrepreneurial thinking and working on agile processes. So this is about open innovation on government decision making, and to do that, we have to connect several legacy systems in our local communities, regions, and so on. We have to make data understandable, and we can do that by making it interoperable, of course, but that's not the only thing we have to take care about. We have to explore the policy impact, and there also the ethical dimension of digital twin comes in. Because the way you present your information is really important and must be focused on your target groups. And this is quite difficult to, let's say, give the same kind of information to groups with a completely different backgrounds. And of course, what we also want to do is, what we are working on and experimenting with, the innovation we do, to share it between cities and regions across Europe. And you will see also in a few slides in our pilots we are working with, those are in fact also geographically 3 entirely different pilots, and that makes it also very interesting. So concept-wise, as you know, in every good European project, you have to provide a figure like this, giving an overall view of what we're trying to explain and try to do. Of course, here on the top of the slide, we have, of course, the different data sources we want to use, and voluntary data, citizen science data is also into account. So not only commercial data and government data. We want to, of course, use the cloud to access all the data, and we want to use different technologies. The European Commission focused also the digital twin aspect on high performance computing, so we are working on that as well. And we also want to work on improving European cloud infrastructure. Of course, what we want to do is giving a digital representation of the city, and in fact, trying to give a real life view with 2D, but also and 3D visualizations. And in fact, what we also want to do policy-wise is to use the design implementation evaluation cycle. We have worked on for 3 years on another project I coordinated, Polyvisu. And to implement this way of fast cycles into the digital twin solution as well. And of course, we will work with digital sister platforms throughout Europe, also in Flanders, and so on. So this is, in fact, in a nutshell, the concept. A few words about the pilots. We work with 3 entirely different pilots. Pilsen in Czech Republic, close to the German border. On a European scale, a smaller city of 160,000 inhabitants, quite centralized in the region there. We have a metropolitan area, Athens in Greece, and we have Flanders, which is in fact a region of cities comparable with the rural area, the British Midlands, or Randstad Nederland. Which gives also a completely different way of cooperating, working together, and so on in the digital twin. So each of those 3 pilots are completely different, are also in, let's say, regions in Europe with a different way of policy making and a different culture as well. So that makes it really interesting. For the use cases, and it's not only the Flanders one, we started, of course, with discussing in the 3 pilots, cities and regions, what are the topics on the table. And in this word cloud, you can see, in fact, 4 important domains. Mobility, health, environment, that will surprise no one, I think, spatial planning as well. But the public safety aspect came also very prominent, became very prominent. And then we are talking about public safety like crime monitoring, but also reducing traffic accidents, the impact of planning and safety, and this kind of stuff was, let's say, the aspect that surprised me the most, that it was so prominent, even more than the energy problem, for example. A few words about the implementation. We have just launched our first alpha version, so the layout is not yet there. But what's important is that we want to try and to combine different models. So what we want to do is, of course, calculate, for example, the impact of a traffic model and changes in traffic on air quality, on noise levels, and so on. And what we want to do in our architecture is, of course, is to see how we can exchange events where one model directly influence another. And that's, of course, important to break down the silos as well. So as mentioned before, breaking down the silos, I think a digital twin is an ideal solution to do that. Another pilot case we're working on in Antwerp together with IMEC, also already mentioned, is in fact the aspect of crowd control. During the COVID-19 outbreak, it's really important to monitor the 1.5 meter distance. And to do that, in fact, you can make, or you can use a combination of different sensors. And what you see here in the 2D map, it's not very advanced, but is a combination already of Wi-Fi sniffers, automatic number plate recognition cameras, data coming from mobile phones, mobile providers, things monitored on smart lightning poles, cameras on safe crossings. And by bringing all those data together, you can get extra insights in how people move around the city. And I think this is a perfect example how a mashup of different sensors in the city can help solving let's say an immediate problem where a sensor alone on itself cannot solve the problem. So this is, I think, a really interesting way of combining city data. This is a very rough view on, let's say, what we call YTT data, yesterday, today, tomorrow data on noise levels here in the city of Pilsen, for example. Just a few words about the architecture. We are using, let's say, a quite well-known and used way of a layered approach, starting from infrastructure data aggregation layer, and there is where the interoperability comes in. And then we are using business layers and then presentation layers. And those presentations are really important because we also want to go to the public with the duet results. And of course, as a vertical pillar, we have the security as well. But what when it becomes really important, I think, is the way we want to work on an open solution. And just before the Corona outbreak, we said, okay, we need a kind of a viral approach. And so we use it, so we built this kind of T-cell design, where in fact we want to work with a very small component, a data and message broker, that, let's say, monitor.
We need to start wrapping up. Could you speed up a little bit?
Okay, sorry. And where so all the information come together from different sources, and where different, let's say, models, public or private sector models, visualizations, and so on come together and can be integrated in an open solution. So to conclude, so in the next 2 years, we will roll out further, of course, the concept. We will make it open for testing, so you're all welcome to test. Just here a little bit of advertising on our website, on, let's say, also a MOOC we have built for a former European project on digital twins, not only, but also on how to use information, or how can you visualize information. And we will start next February with another European project, which is called Urbanage, where Flanders will be a pilot together with Helsinki and Santander, where we will also test in Flanders and in different cities how personal data can work together with digital twin solutions to work on, let's say, advice directed to your personal situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieven, for that presentation. I think it gives a really good overview of what the Duet project is and what it wants to do. Could you stop sharing the slides for a moment?
Of
Thank
course.
you. So that was a great a question I'd have is, listening to the speakers before we go to Vienna, is the regional component. So we talk about that, but let's say you have a mid-sized city or a smaller city. What is the latch-on point? So how do they get access to the capabilities that the digital twin offers? Is that as a kind of a subject from the big city infrastructure and where the mobility paths happen to cross there, or is there some kind of an the smaller operational capabilities, are they also distributed, let's say, to smaller municipal governments? So that's a question maybe also to everybody. What is the scale where it doesn't become feasible anymore in terms of city size? Is that something that you have encountered or are looking at?
Maybe to start with, from my perspective, in smaller cities or even in rural areas, the basic requirements are not different to the ones in cities. The only difference is big cities can afford to create their own solutions, whereas mid-sized cities or even rural areas are not able to do so. And in the meantime, we have quite good examples of complete regions who are joining forces, going the same way. A very good example, Jose, talking about Badajoz in Spain. They have created, as the capital has, I think, Badajoz city has 150,000 people, and then there are a lot of smaller cities, and they joined forces, created a platform, a smart city platform for the whole region, bringing, in the meantime, roughly 30 different smart solutions onto this platform. And the different cities from the region can pick those applications which fit to them, all based on the same platform, using similar functionalities, joining forces and sharing cost. So I think this is an appropriate way to go and to bring digital solutions also to smaller cities and to rural areas.
I think I cannot tell you the difference between a city and a region. The concept is evolving to the idea of metropolitan area. From the human perspective, I have studied in my doctoral thesis that everything that is reachable in less than 90 minutes is the same city. So Amsterdam, Rotterdam, the same city. Also integrated with Antwerp. Paris is not Paris, is the Ile-de-France. Berlin is also a very large conurbation. So from the human perspective, we are talking about exactly the same city. So all these kind of solutions are also integrating, are providing those services. Because from the human perspective, you have mentioned Badajoz, all this area is exactly the same city. And in my opinion, we are going to a Europe made of around 100 metropolitan areas, big metropolitan areas.
I agree, and I think one of the really important elements is also on the European level, I think, is to see, okay, which data sets can be used on a European level, which data sets are available on a national or regional level, and what's specific on the city level. And digital twin is about combining all those different data layers and creating added value on top of that. And for me, that's also where a digital twin is about, bringing those data together. We have done massive investments in open data, but we all know that the number of good applications are behind from private sector and from public sector. And I think a digital twin there is a really good instrument to also make all those investments more valuable. Mm. Yeah. It's all taxpayers' money.
Mm. Yeah. If I can chip in, Davor, here, I think the Commission has a program. It's called what is it? Small Giants. Even the smallest city now has a GIS department, and I think that's the enabling pin. Not because I'm the geospatial guy here on board, but every city has a geospatial, and if we work with the well-known standards, even the smaller cities can hook up And so there should not be any limitations. Of course, you know, bigger cities can do that, bigger investment and all that, but the basic infrastructure should be available to all the cities.
Good. Thank you for those comments. Vienna, if you have a comment, you're welcome to attach it in front or after your slot, but the floor is yours.
Just to sum it up on the topic of small cities, I think we sometimes heard now the topic data silos, and also small cities have these problems as well. So if we achieve to generate a city information model in small cities as well to connect data sets, they can also benefit from that. So it's not a matter of the size of the city.
Cool. So I think we can continue with the presentation from Vienna, which we haven't had yet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. I think it's a wonderful panel here, and I like the visions which you have been showing, and we share them. In our presentation, we want to focus on a very specific aspect of digital twins. We call our project Digital Geo Twin. So what does Geo with the twin? Yeah, my name is Hubert Lehner. I'm working for the city administration, and in the Department of Surveying and Mapping, I'm responsible for photogrammetry and 3D modeling. And together with my colleague, Saralina Kodash, we are leading this project Digital Geo Twin. Well, our perception as well is that for a digital twin or a digital urban twin, you need like a 3D replica of the physical space. And there has to be data integrated in this virtual space, so to build up a city information model. And there has to be information after analysis and simulation going back to reality to have better decisions. And what is our aspect? As I said, we're working for the Department of Surveying and Mapping. So our daily work is to produce geodata. And the goal of our project is to create a semantic vector-based 3D city model. So you might say that's standard meanwhile, but we want to go a bit a different way than it has been done in the past. So we have a lot of surveying data, and of course, all the surveying data is 3D, but it's not just one data source, it's photogrammetry, it's terrestrial surveying, it's meanwhile also mobile mapping data, which is part of this surveying data. And all this data we want to combine to 3D city objects. So in the past, city models have been buildings only. And then, of course, cities try to get further, and they combined the buildings and a terrain model, added bridges, maybe vegetation, and some street infrastructure, street furniture. But we want to see it like as a whole, so that like every object in the city is modeled. And the benefit for us is geodata production department is that we want to derive other geodata products, like 2D products, from this 3D scene. Because basically, if you look from the top view on the digital geotwin, then you will see it's more or less a city map. If you start modeling data, then you have to decide like what level of detail should it have. And for building models, we have been studying that already, looking at all our data. Everybody knows the level of detail concept from CityGML. There's meanwhile also this improved specifications from publication of TU Delft. We added there one column for our needs. So what our aim is to have a photogrammetric roof, dormers, but just the big ones. But then also we want to have overbuilt areas in the model. And where do we get all the data from? As said, from photogrammetry, terrestrial surveying, and the facade structures we achieve from mobile mapping. There has been a campaign in 2017-18 and one in 20. And the moment we are extracting data from these data sets. Then from LLD2 to LLD3, you need to add openings in the model. So here, this is not possible to measure it manually anymore. Here we're just looking at artificial intelligence or building analysis, where it's possible or how it's possible to extract openings, windows, and doors, but not just for visual aspects, but also to get this data back to the models, because it adds more geometry to the model, but also more information to the model. So you have then also, you know how many floors a building has, for example. Well, and then I want to hand over to Saralena, and she will talk about the use cases.
Thank you, Hubert. So we'll just quickly jump into the use cases that we defined to embed the digital geotwin into the digital twin of the city of Vienna. Please go to the next slide. Thank you. So our first use case is linked data. Why? Common methods, we heard it before now, are that you overlay data sets, that you integrate data sets from one department into another one. Our goal is to link the databases within the city of Vienna from different departments via IDs or link tables. Of course, that's depending on the different data relationships that we have there. What are the benefits? It's possible to track the differences in the data records. Although the data sets are still only linked, that means that they can be edited independently. And this leads us to the goal to create a city information model with linked data sets of all departments in the city of Vienna with the corresponding geo objects that we model in our geotwin. And of course, another benefit is that we can also add additional information from the geo objects, if we think about geo objects for the whole city, not only buildings, to the department data sets. If we think, for example, about a tree cataster and we have the measured tree, then we can add, for example, the tree height to it or the volume of a building. There are many examples for it. And the database links and the connections between the department datasets will also be available in the geodata products that are derived from the digital geotwin. Exactly. If we go to the second use case, it's the use case planning data. Why is planning the second use case? If you think about planning data in the city, 3D data is very often generated in the planning process, and in the course of the process, of the planning process, it goes from an area definition up to BIM models. And there is not a standard that one department uses. There is a wide range of data formats, and the data is often stored locally, analog or in a digital way. So there is no central place where the planning data of the city is stored. And the data is often also not geo-referenced. Our vision is to create a planning twin. This is a central database which includes all the planning data from all stadiums. And this would also support the planning process, of course. And the benefits, if you have this planning twin, are, of course, that you can carry out simulations from an early stage on, like the visual impact on the cityscape or also the effects on the microclimate, and so on. And of course, planning plays a big part in the public relations work and also in the citizen participation. This brings us to the last use case, simulation. Why simulation? Everyone knows that there is a great interest on the effects of plannings in the city and the effects on the urban living space. These are small-scale analysis and also city-wide analysis. And the range of simulation goes from wind flow, from shadowing, up to flood scenarios, and also to the disruptive events like, for example, bombing. And what are the benefits here? If we really simulate these situations in advance, we can consider these results in all city planning projects and also in the decision-making processes in advance. And another benefit is if you think about the relationship between simulations and linked databases. If we go into the example of a bomb diffusing, if we know the buildings and we know through linking of data sets how many people are living in there, you can calculate and calculate and see how many people are affected and how many people you need to evacuate. Or the second example goes for flood simulations. If you have a flood in the city and you know which geo-objects buildings are affected, and these buildings are connected to the facility management data, you know, for example, which material they are made of, and then you can really calculate how much damage is there and which buildings and infrastructure are affected from it. Another use case that we haven't on our slides is the use case sensor data, IoT, of course, you mentioned it in your presentations. So that was a short sketch up and summary of our project of the digital geotwin. And if there are any questions, feel free to ask them.
Thank you for that presentation. I think it's really awesome how, you know, practical it all is. It's being you know, invented on one hand, it's being then deployed on the other, and it drives this real value. So kudos for kind of, you know, the innovation to practice. It's a really awesome presentation, and I think, you know, it's very valuable to the audience of the festival, but the whole network, I think, in general, also including, of course, the other speakers. So we'll make sure to kind of promote this. The content we've seen in this session, I think, was just amazing. We don't have too much time, but I'd like to ask the speakers maybe to comment on the Vienna project, or deliver some final remarks, so we can start slowly going towards a closing of the session, or maybe if there are any questions.
Maybe I can start after we saw all these different presentations, looking from different angles onto the same topic, the digital twin. And I'd like to come back, Bart, to your presentation when you mentioned the role of system of systems. And I think system of systems and digital twin are two sides of the same coin. They belong together. And I'm very much convinced that in larger ecosystems and in cities, we are talking about a larger ecosystem. We need much more this approach of systems, because one single platform will not be able to serve all requirements and to solve all problems within a city. So we need more the interaction of different platforms, of different systems. We've started with one approach last year, together with the city of Heidelberg, where we made a system of system approach between Fireware and SAP. But two systems is not what we mean with system of systems. So we are talking about really several systems which need to work together. And again, here, MIM1 and MIM2 play an utmost important role, having same APIs, same data models as an enabler to work together.
I just like to check and also a little bit to share one of the it's not a scientific outcome, but it's an outcome of some of the interviews we had about digital twins in cities. And one of the things we noticed was the fact that high-level policymakers are very much in favor of the digital twin concept and of and breaking down the silos and the barriers, let's say, and are very well aware of this. When you're talking to some people in the different departments, like the environmental department or the city planning department or mobility department, some of them at least have the tendency to say, okay, we have our systems up and running. They're doing what we want and expect they should do. And they're a little bit afraid, probably, I'm not sure about that this is the exact problem or feeling, that a digital twin will disrupt their way of working in their departments. So what we noticed was, let's say that that there could be a bigger demand on management level and a smaller demand on the work floor, and that was a little bit the opposite of what some of us in the consortium would expect, or had expected. Mm-hmm. Do you share this feeling? Do you recognize this? Also, it's just an open question.
Well, I do understand it. I think, you know, GIS is so central, right, to the way a lot of departments operate. But so I think great remark, and of course eager to listen to what the others have to say. But I'd like to add another question: is like, do digital twins, because you know GIS is also something of a rabbit hole. You can make it insanely awesome, right? But you can also just do like minimal stuff. So do for the cities that don't have that, like, you know, huge, like awesome setup, do digital twins represent a leapfrog, maybe that a leapfrog opportunity where they could actually, you know, not invest in all that kind of stuff and just get you know, the next gen type of thing. So that's a question I would have also. Sorry to kind of semi hijack that question even, but yeah, great question, thanks. So please.
Yeah, Davor, let me step in on the disruption. You know, we're always on the lookout and waiting for the next disruption. Some of the things that we have seen is that, and I, you know, look at the previous presentations, is that location, the sharing the information on location could be a disruption in the industry. And there's a variety of solutions for the smaller, for the biggers. So I think it's just that awareness of that location has mainstreamed. Let me put it that way. I think in the past, location was in that GIS bubble. What we've seen the past couple of years is really that outcoming into the you know, location can now be shared using normal, regular ICT standards. You know, I call out the OGC APIs, which work as, you know, other solutions out there. And I think that is a big enabler to what you just said. If I can pick up on some of the previous speakers on how they rounded it up, I'm fully agreeing with what was said earlier, so I'm not going to repeat it. What Ulrich said, for instance, totally agree. But just maybe a call out to everyone that is watching us here is, you know, breaking down silos, creating standards, bringing people together does not happen automatically. People come to OWASP, people come to the OGC, people come to FIWARE and to the varieties of initiatives. I think, you know, first of all, you know, let's us here in this group come more together. We've been coming together, but let's intensify that. But also for everyone on the line is join an initiative. We all need to learn from each other. These things don't happen just like that. We do it because you have the use cases. We do it because you have the technology. And so really that is that warm, you know, reach out that I'm doing to everyone is like join an initiative. And it doesn't matter if you're a small or a bigger city, you'll learn on the way. So it's always a good investment to join a community of practice.
Any other remarks, comments?
I want to say that this is mainly associated to the City of Things, and we need to keep in mind that we have as well citizens, and we have a massive amount of data about our citizens, and we need to integrate as well these two worlds, cities of things and cities of citizens. That's as a remark. Okay.
Absolutely, we do it for the citizens and nothing else. Absolutely, you're right, Jose.
Yeah, but here comes another dimension into the game, that when talking about data about citizens, that we need to really improve the trust in data sovereignty. Yeah, that the data of the citizens are not misused, because if there is not trust and if there's not confidence, then there will be resistance, and we definitely need to avoid this.
Exactly, because when we are talking about things, we are talking about IoT, very fast data acquisition, stream analytics. So it is not so relevant, the security, you know, but when we are talking about data from citizens, then we need to be very careful because it's very sensitive. Then the security, the privacy are the main and the key topics to discuss. It's completely different.
Agree.
So Any final words, comments? If not, I'll start wrapping up this session so we can head to the closing of the conference. Thank you, speakers. It was a real pleasure to do this session. Actually, now I started my intro saying we didn't do a conference on digital twins, and after this session, you know, I'm quite happy with what we did, but maybe we should still do one somewhere in the near future, because it's such a great, you know, multi-sided topic. So thanks again. Yeah. Oh, Martin, I didn't see you in my interface. Please welcome. I did ask Leah to pull you in, but I hadn't seen you make it. So yes, great.
But just picking up on that, and apologies for jumping in, but it was your cue, Davor. So I do think what we are doing is creating the foundation for digital twins, simply. So, you know, OESC are creating minimal interoperability mechanisms. And if you can spell that and say that now, congratulations, that's the easy part. I think really if you put all the MIMs together, you have the foundations for interoperable digital twins. And just picking up on one thing you said, Bart, cities know where things are, who owns them, also so they can tax them. It's been like this for millennia. This is not a new thing. And we do see the competences in the GIS departments, surely. But there's also this is why we have proposed, and I think even together, Bart, to work towards having a geospatial MIM. Because what is the minimal that every place on the planet would need? So that's one thing. The second thing is the learning we have from Helsinki, where the semantics actually provide 90% of the value from digital twins, and the physical part only 10%. So that's interesting. And what we're doing now, we're proposing another MIM on circular resource management. Now, why that? That's because if you want to chain digital twins, you could call it linked data management, the example from Vienna, but we call it circular because, of course, there's a lot of focus on that. What you actually need is then you need to have edge twins, not, you know, the powerhouses that sit in one place. Every place needs to be capturable by. You need to chain that. And then something really problematic happens. It's natural, but it's difficult to govern. These models are not authoritative. They are in conflict. And we are back to the point from United Nations. This is about territory. This is about power. This is about how we perceive the world. And there's great power in defining that. You have great power, Bart and OGC. So I think we have to recognize that yes, the principles might be, in fact, quite simple, but we are trying to find a way how to connect the world without it falling under its own weight. So this is why the minimal is there. And I think, like you also said, Ulrich, it's really creating the foundations for our societies now, chaining these things. So the regionalization can only happen with minimal interoperability. So just want to make the point that I think actually the entire conference is about digital twinning if you want to take that perspective. Thanks everybody for coming and joining, and I think the partnerships are happening for sure.